Hang on a minute. I've just eaten a nutty chocolate bar. I'll just get rid of that. Okay. So hi, my name is Matt. I live on the Beara Peninsula. I first moved here because I wanted to learn to meditate. And there's an amazing meditation centre here called Beara. That was in 1998. So I'm interested in learning about well-being and purpose, meaning, fulfillment in life. I'd be interested to talk to anybody, listen to anybody rather, who I feel could help make sense out of the world we live in. Any little bit of wisdom I can pick up here or there around the place. It was a few years ago. I was driving Sophia to Cork for a hospital appointment. It's a 4-hour round trip and I really enjoyed it. We were gassing away all the way there, all the way back. And what I'd particularly like to hear from her today is a mantra for life. You could say a mantra for old age. I think that's what she called it at the time. But I think it's relevant for any age. And also it just shows that if we live our lives with awareness and heart, then it can teach us a lot. And we can also overcome. Because one of the things about Sophia is it's kind of easy to be philosophical and bright when things are going easy, but she hasn't had an easy life at all. In fact, this meeting, I think I first proposed it about 18 months, 2 years ago, and it's been cancelled, postponed for various reasons, her reasons, because she's had certain things come up for herself. So I just texted her, and here we are. An hour later, I'm on my way down. So sometimes that's the way to do things, isn't it? A little bit spontaneous. So here we go, we're just pulling into Sophia's drive. Not a bad view, eh? Hello.
Hello to you. Please come in.
Okay. So you say you haven't had a recording like this for how many years?
Oh, maybe 60 or so.
60? What was the last one?
Well, I used to do modeling.
Did you?
Yeah,
What kind of modelling?
clothes.
Okay.
But
In California, eh?
in New York.
Okay.
That's a long time ago.
Would you consider you've had a lucky life?
Very, very lucky.
What's been lucky?
Well, there have been lots of things that have been, what would you call it? It's like you think you're going someplace because of this, but you're actually going because of that. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't have gotten to that if you hadn't done this, you know? Red herring. It's like a red herring. It leads you to where you really need to go, but through a path that you wouldn't have, that you had to take in order to get there. Mm-hmm. And you wouldn't have gotten there if you hadn't taken that one. You know, does that make sense? It's happened to me so many times, I can't even really picture it, but that I've gone someplace for A, but I was really there for B. Mm-hmm. It's just happened over and over in my life. And I would call that very lucky, because to get where you really need to be, to do what you actually really need to do, sometimes it has a very peculiar path to it, you know. But if you follow the path, you get there.
So what does that sounds like there needs to be a certain amount of openness and trust. Because if you're very fixed in where you're going and how you're going to get there, you can't do what you're just describing, is it? Or...
Well, it was like the way I left America to come and went to England. You know, I thought I was going there to do a particular job, and I wouldn't have gone if I didn't think I was doing that job. But when I got there, that job no longer existed, but something better did. That's the kind of example I'm talking about. Yeah.
You talked about once to me about being a house mother and what that taught you.
Well, in the Camp Hill system, a house mother, that now they no longer use that term. Now they're called house managers, which I think is too bad. But the idea is that you are in charge of a house, either on your own or with your husband or partner, and there are people with various additional needs living in that house with you. And I had never lived in a community situation before. And I learned a lot from that in terms of letting other people do things their way. You know, the kitchen, I'm very into cooking, was always my thing. But now it was mine and this person and this person and this person. And to learn to just let go of stuff and not only let other people do stuff, but not be in charge of what they do. Let them do it their way, you know, short of burning the house down, you know. But that was very valuable for me, to have that experience.
So you say you had a lucky life, but I was thinking as I was walking down here that we tried to we made this arrangement to have a chat a few times and it got postponed.
Yeah.
And one time was because your teeth weren't ready.
Yes.
And hadn't been fitted, for example. And I just, you know, we've known each other for probably 20 years around.
Yeah.
And I just know that during that time you've been living with and met various adversity along your way. And that's how I would describe it. You know, challenges as life throws up. And then when we drove to Cork, you were telling me about a mantra you kind of had, or a philosophy. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What was that?
It was accept and adapt.
Yeah.
You know, and that applies to so many areas of life at so many stages of life. You know, it's absolutely vital as you get older, because the most unhappy people in my age group that I know are people who are still hanging on to everything and denying things, you know, like, no, I don't need hearing aids, and, you know, that kind of thing. So that's very, very important as you're getting older, to be able to accept whatever changes are happening in your body particularly, and make adjustments for that, make adaptations for that, so that you can continue to do as much as you can. But it's not only for old people. You know, it really, really applies to, I think, every stage of life, you know, to actually be able to be present in the moment, accept what that moment is, and decide and figure out how to work with that, you know. That's how I feel about things, you know.
Did it come to you in one instant or in one circumstance, or do you think it's something that life gradually taught, or that you gradually learned from life?
Well, I think it's probably that I learned that but didn't vocalize it, you know. And it was when a dentist whose mother was my age and who is having difficulties said, how do you manage to be as well and active as you are at your age? and it just, and then the phrase was there. Well, I just accept and adapt. So, but I think I've been living that for a long time. I just hadn't vocalized it. But then it was there. Now some of our mutual friends in the area come up with that and throw it back at me, when they're dealing with something. They say, oh, I'm just accepting and adapting, haha, you know. But and these are people who are much younger than I am, but everybody's facing some kinds of challenges in their lives. Yeah.
Yeah, you've always brought a unique sense of humour to any situation. Definitely, I think that's probably part of it, isn't it? Accept and adapt. But one of the things I appreciate about you is you're very direct. If you want help, you ask. If you don't want help, you make that very clear too. If it's interference or and outcome.
I think it's really important to be direct. Not in an offensive way, hopefully, but just to make things clear, because I've dealt with people who have what I would call snakes in the head, and you say something and they interpret it and then they reinterpret, and this goes, and I can't really do that. I guess I'm still too American for that. This kind of directness, because it cuts through things. And that's how I grew up dealing with things. And so that's how I still am.
And you don't talk about your problems, do you?
Well, problems is not a great word. I don't like it very much, because I think there are challenges, there are events, there are conditions, but all of those things indicate something that can be worked with. To me, if you're talking about a problem, it's something that's insoluble, and I don't see things as problems.
Do you have regrets?
No. No, I think that's something else that's a complete waste of time, because there are things it would have been good if I'd done them differently. There have been many things that I think I could have done better than I did. But that's different than having regrets. I don't mull around about those things because they are what they were. And it's like, my family life was a little peculiar. My father was a very difficult person and deserted the family when we were quite young, with 6 children in the house. And for years, I just really hated him. But at some point, and it was in my late teens, the thought, click, came that if he could have been a better person, he would have been, because nobody would really want to be the way he was. And that just resolved that. After that, I didn't have a problem about him. But I feel that way about myself, too. These situations that I could have done better in, if I'd been a different person at that point, I would have done better. But I wasn't, and I didn't. But that's not regrets, It's accepting how your life has unfolded is what it is, I think. Something like that.
Is there a part of you that wants to go back, wants to be younger?
Oh, God, no. No, thank you. No. And especially, the world has become a difficult place. I feel sorry, actually, for young people, what they're having to deal with and having to face now. And no, I wouldn't want to do that again. If I have to come back in another life, well, I'll deal with it when I get here.
So for these young people, whatever age that might mean, what advice would you give? What would you share?
Well, there's the old accept and adapt, isn't there? Which is going to apply massively to young people, because things are changing so rapidly. You know, things really are changing very, very rapidly, and for young people who can't find the flexibility to deal with that, they're going to be in big trouble. You know, that is the advantage of being my age, of having gone through decades of adapting and adjusting and finding my way through a lot of things. My life hasn't been a straight path. And so anything I have to say comes out of the experience of my years, you know.
But some people experience twists them and makes them bitter. It's like the old cliche, you know, it's not the wind, it's how you set your sails. Mm-hmm. It really feels like you've set your sails in a certain way.
Well, you know, I have several friends in their early 80s to early 90s that I'm in contact with on a regular basis. And I feel very sad when I hear people say, oh, you know, and one of them is quite a reminiscer. Oh, it was so wonderful in my college days. Those were the best days of my life, blah, blah, blah. I think that is terribly, terribly sad, you know, because if you ask me right now, what is the best day of your life, I would say today is.
Really, though?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm just testing you. I think you're right.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. It's knowing that the people who are, the person particularly, who goes over and over and over the highlights, and knowing that she's a very unhappy person now. If you're going to review some part of your life that you enjoyed and was a good thing to remember, that's great. But if you're doing that out of the fact that now you think your life is terrible and you're unhappy and you're sad and you wish you were back in college, that's sad. That's the one that I think is too bad.
It's almost pushing happiness away, or the gap between you and happiness is bigger.
Yeah.
And where was it I heard or read, you know, if you're always looking for happiness somewhere else, then you can never be happy where you are. If happiness is always somewhere else, so if it's in the past or if it's in the future, then how can you ever experience it here and now? So, yeah.
Well, and also I think happiness gets interpreted in so many ways that are meaningless, when actually the thing that is more important, especially, well, at any age, I think, but definitely when you're older, is contentment. You know, because happiness is like a flash in the pan or seeing a rainbow or something. But contentment is being able to be where you are and how you are now. And that's, to me, is much more important. Yeah, by all means, have some happiness, but that's not the solid thing that you live in.
It's not stable.
Yeah.
It's not reliable.
Yeah.
Whereas a contentment is something, I think, from what I understand anyway, it's something you have some influence over. It's how you are, it's how you think, or don't think.
Yeah.